I thought I'd never see them in VRAINS, but yep, here we are. This is an archetype focused around flip effect monsters, and its name is Tindangle. They were used by Akira Zaizen in a grand total of 2 duels. One was his duel against Playmaker as he was infiltrating the database, and he was there with Ghost Girl to stop them. And yeah, his other duel was his duel with Ai, alongside with Aoi, who was helping him with her Marincess deck, which is, I think, the archetype we're taking a look at next time on the series. So let me check. Yep, next time we have Marincess, so yeah. Anyway, Tindangles are very mediocre, as the community says, and their most formidable, and well, formidable in quotes, and their most practical, let's say, builds are those with Subterrors, which by themselves aren't that good of an archetype. So yeah, let's take a look at them, shall we? First up, we have Tindangle Protector, a level 3 with 800 attack and 1600 defense. Flip effect that you can change up to 3 face down defense position monsters you control to face down defense position. Then all those monsters and if all those monsters are Tindangle monsters, you can add up to that many Tindangle cards from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Tindangle Protector once per turn. Sounds like a cool searching effect, and well, keeping up with the theme of the archetype in order to flip their monsters face down in order to reset their effects. But this kind of effect is insanely slow. You'll have to rely on stuff like Book of Taiyu and Book of Eclipse in order to... What am I saying? Book of Moon in order to keep activating those effects. Although Book of Eclipse can sort of be useful since you can... since it can provide with some massive flipping going on, so... Yeah. It's, well, I think they're best searchers, so... Yeah, we're off to a decent start. It is, of course, a 2 or 3 staple in the archetype due to the archetype not having many options. So yeah. Next up, we have their newest piece of support already, that being Tindangle Jerry. What the hell? How do I pronounce this? For convenience sake, I'll be pronouncing this thing Jerry for the rest of the video. Anyway, Tindangle Jerry is a level 3 as well, with 0 attack and 1800 defense, and a flip effect that you can take one flip monster from your deck except Jerry, and either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. If this card is in your hand, you can discard one other card from your hand, send one Tindangle card from your deck to the graveyard except Tindangle Jerry. Also, special summon this card from your hand in face down defense position. You can only use each effect of Tindangle Jerry once per turn. This is fine. That's not saying much since we're talking about Tindangles here, but in terms of what it does, it's a foolish burial in whichever effect you decide to use, whether it's the flip effect or the discard effect. You're probably going to use the discard effect as a foolish burial effect, and then when you flip it face up, you're going to have the search being performed. So yeah, it works somewhat well in conjunction with Protector, so not all is bad, and I advise to run at least 2 or 3 of these. Next up, we have Tindangle Angel. Their first level 4 has 500 attack and 1800 defense, and a flip effect. And you can special summon one flip monster from your hand or graveyard in face down defense position, except Tindangle Angel. Then if it was your opponent's battle phase, end the battle phase. You can only use this effect of Tindangle Angel once per turn. This is another card which actually works well with Jerry, since you can actually use Tindangle Jerry's Foolish Burial effect by discarding something to the graveyard, probably one of their tribute monsters, which we'll get into later. Then set this, since you have a normal summon remaining, and then recover said monster, which we'll get into later. So, well, the tribute monsters I mentioned, but you can also recover any Tindangle monster. So yeah, perfectly serviceable, but it does require a bit of setup, and you might not always have Jerry being available. So yeah, it can be a bit of a bricky experience then. Next up, we have Tindangle Trinity, their next level 4. 0 attack and 1500 defense, and a flip effect that you can special summon one Tindangle base Gardna from your deck. If this card was flipped face up, your Tindangle monsters cannot be destroyed by battle. If this card is sent to the graveyard as a link material from the link sum of a Tindangle monster, you can add one Gergone's End, whatever, from your deck to your hand, and if you do, send one spell or trap from your deck to your to the graveyard. You can only use this effect of Tindangle Trinity once per turn. We'll get to the monster, and the Gergone's End is actually one of their spell cards. Actually, their trap cards. Sorry. But as for this thing, it's fine. Again, that's not saying much since we're talking about a flip effect, a monster known as Tindangles of all things. However, I'm actually very curious about the second effect, since it allows you to send any spell card from your deck to your graveyard, which opens up some versatility combinations you might actually want to experiment with. Maybe banish some, maybe dump a Metal Foes Fusion in order to get a free card. Who knows? Basically, any spell card which has a decent graveyard effect and which you can abuse, and this archetype is very welcome. So yeah. As for that Tindangle base Gardna that this thing mentions, well, it's actually their first tribute monster, the level 5, and has 0 attack and 2300 defense, and if you control a face down defense position monster, you can special summon this card from your hand in defense position. You can only special summon Tindangle base Gardna once per turn this way. If a monster is normal or special summoned and is now pointed to by an opponent's link monster, except during the damage step, you contribute this card to special summon non-Tindangle monsters from your hand or deck in attack position or face down defense position. Okay, I have quite a few problems with this thing. First of all, this thing isn't even a flip effect monster, which it's actually their only monster which is not flip effect monster in their archetype, which really bums me out due to how some of their other support cards work. Second, well, it does have a okay special summoning condition, but the second effect, which actually special summons from the hand and deck, which is a very good effect by all means, is so incredibly specific. It's one of the most specific effects in the goddamn universe. This effect is most likely gonna be performed once every 375 billion duels. And not to mention that it's okay. It has a summoning. It has a really cool special summoning condition. Works very well with Jerry, but again, it's a very, very inconsistent Swarm Father. And if you run this, you'd probably run it at 1 max. Next up, we have Tindangle Intruder, which is their other tribute monster. This one is a flip effect level 6 with 2200 attack and 0 defense. And a flip effect is that you can add one Tindangle card from your deck to your hand. When this card is normal summoned, you can send one Tindangle card from your deck to the graveyard. If a monster is special summoned to your field in face down defense position, while this card is in your graveyard, special summon this card in face down defense position, and this is not optional for whatever reason. And you can only use each effect of Tindangle Intruder once per turn. It's a searcher, but I would have loved it if it was actually 2 levels lower, since those tend to be very good for a nice flip effect searcher. Hell, some monsters back in the day were low level flip effect monsters, which only had the very measly thin searching capabilities and nothing else. This one is, again, if you run this, it's probably not more than 1, and I have no idea why the hell is the revival effect not optional. I literally have no idea what the hell is that effect supposed to, what game state is supposed to induce. So yeah, a bit puzzled there. Next up, we have their final main deck monster, that being Tindangle Hound. This is a level 7 flip effect monster with 2500 attack and 0 defense. And a flip effect that you can target one other face-up monster on the field. This card gains attack equal to that target's original attack. Then change that target to face-down defense position. Each monster your opponent controls loses 1000 attack for each monster linked to it. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can target one face down monster on the field, change it to face up defense position. As for a main deck boss monster, this card works kind of well, I actually have to say. It gains attack equal to a monster you want to like steal it off from, and not to mention it also flips them face down, which means it shuts down their effects. Although good luck if said monster cannot be targeted, or if it's a monster which can negate monster effects such as Crystal Wings. So yeah, it does have a few of its handicaps, but still, it's for a main deck boss monster, it's a very cool card. And not to mention that it has a very nice recovery effect, which works well in conjunction with Jerry and Tindangle Angels. So yeah, it's alright, and but still, it can be a bit of a bricky choice. So more than one isn't a very good choice, and it is not usually required. If you really feel like it, run 2. Next up we have their final monster, and their link monster, Tindangle Acute Cerberus. This one's a link 3, 0 attack, requires 3 Tindangle monsters specifically, points up, bottom left, and bottom right, and gains 3000 attack if you have 3 or more Tindangle monsters with different names in your graveyard, including Tindangle Base Gardener. Gains 500 attack for each Tindangle monster it points to. At the end of the battle phase, if this card declared an attack, you can special summon one Tindangle token, which is a Fiend, Dark level 1 with 0 attack and defense. Okay, why the hell does it do you need to have that Tindangle Base Gardener in order for this card to have 3000 attack? Like, with the existence of this, Tindangle Gardener becomes the prime foolish burial target and is going to stay in that graveyard for the rest of the duel. It's never ever going to be touched after hitting the graveyard this way. So yeah, if you run Base Gardener, it's probably because you want to fill up the graveyard in order to have this card gain 3000 attack. Which actually brings me to another problem I have with this card. As soon as one of those 3 Tindangle monsters gets removed from the graveyard, this card's attack becomes 0. So yeah, unless you have Tindangle monsters which this card points to. So yeah, if you somehow happen to... If your opponent removes Base Guard, now it's something like, I don't know, Soul Release or anything that disrupts graveyard setup. This thing becomes useless as a rotten octopus on a stick. So no, it's I mean, you can basically secure the usage of your Base Gardener and your Tindangles in the graveyard with Necro Valley, but come on, you're just really pushing it. I mean, you can activate Necro Valley if you want to swing in for the kill and don't want the opponent messing you up. So, but yeah, then the Necro Valley becomes a very disgusting brick early on, and you don't want early bricks in the Tindangles when you play them. Again, if you want to run this, it's probably fine at 1, maybe 2 if you really feel like it. Next up we have their field spell, Euler Circuit. Your opponent's monsters cannot attack if you control 3 or more Tindangle monsters. Once per turn during your standby phase, you can target one Tindangle monster you control, give control of it to your opponent. You can banish this card from your graveyard and discard one Tindangle card. Add one Euler Circuit from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Euler Circuit once per turn. I have no idea why the hell would you want to give your Tindangles away to your opponent. Yeah, you can give it to a zone Acute Cerberus points to in order to buff it with more attack, but that's the only relevant usage I can think of for this card. Every other case, you're just giving them a free link monster. Yeah, and not to mention that this thing has a very specific cost in order to search out another copy of itself. What a masterpiece, really. The only relevant usage of this thing is the attack locking effect, but if you really want to lock your opponent out with a field spell, you just run any better lockdown field spell along with Earthbound Immortal Chaku Chalua, who is in defense position. And yeah, that's basically it. I'm not sure why you should ever run this. The Subterror field spell is a much better choice if you crave a field spell in Tindangle's Subterrors. Next up we have their other spell card, Tindangle Protection. This is a continuous spell, which says that Tindangle monsters in your main monster zones cannot be destroyed by battle or your opponent's card effects. Once per turn, if your Tindangle monster inflicts battle damage to your opponent, the damage is doubled. You can banish this card from your graveyard and discard one Tindangle card, add one Tindangle Protection from your deck to your hand, and you can only use this effect once per turn. Again, with the adding another copy of itself with a very specific cost to it, but this one is a bit more relevant since it's a miles better card than their field spell. So yeah, not to mention that continuous spell cards are much less searchable than field spells, so the effect is actually a bit more welcome in this regard. But as for this thing's usefulness, it's fine. Yeah, it doubles any battle damage Tindangles do. It also has sweet protection, which does not depend on the number of Tindangle monsters you control. However, it only protects Tindangles in main monster zones, so Acute Cerberus is very left out there. And yeah, 2 should be fine, and 3 if you really feel like it. Their first trap card is the mentioned Jargon's End. It's a normal trap which allows you to target one Tindangle Link monster you control, equip this card to it. It cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. Also, your opponent cannot target it with card effects. Once per turn, if there are monsters in all zones, the equipped monster points to. If there are still monsters in all zones, the equipped monster points to, you can destroy this card and all of those monsters. Then inflict damage to your opponent equal to the equipped monster's attack before they were destroyed. This is one of the most specific, again, activations I have ever seen on a card, and not to mention that this card is specifically specifically searchable by base Gardna, which really hammers the point in that they really wanted you to play this card along with base Gardna, which are some of the worst cards in the archetype. I have no idea what's going on here, and I don't want to think about it. Moving on, their final card is the normal trap Tindangle Dilune. When you take battle damage from an opponent's attacking monster, while you have 3 or more Tindangle monsters with different names in your graveyard, you can destroy the attacking monster, and if you do, special summon one Tindangle Acute Cerberus from your extra deck. If you control no monsters in the extra monster zone, you can banish this card from your graveyard and target 3 Tindangle monsters with different names in your graveyard, special summon them in face down defense position. Okay, the only relevant effect is actually the graveyard effect. However, the first one is fine. Yeah, it's somewhat the easiest way to summon Acute Cerberus to the field. It's probably going to die next turn, since you most probably don't have a base Gardna in your graveyard by the time you actually get to activate this card. So yeah, it's very flimsy in both the activation and the floating department. So running 1 or 2 is usually the optimal number of what you want, how you want to run these. So yeah. Alright, grades. Consistency is very, very terrible. It requires way too much setup for the most basic of plays, and Subterrors don't really take them to any kind of consistency relevance to this point, so 1 out of 3 it is. Power, other than Tindangle Cerberus, Acute Cerberus that is, which is not that frequently ran, tongue wrapping myself again, and is not usually nearly as much summoned in the archetype. There's pretty much no relevant power output here, so 1 out of 3 as well. Comeback ability usually depends on stuff like Tindangle Dilune or basically any monster which can actually special summon a bunch of monsters from the graveyard, which are not plentiful. Soul Charge would be very welcome in this deck, but that is banned, so yeah, 1 out of 3 there as well. Protection exists. It's a bit too flimsy, but still they have some very nice lockdown potential, so I'm gonna be very generous here and give them a 2 out of 3 in that regard. And as for the versatility, other than Subterrors, there's nothing pretty much going on here. They can take in some needleworms in order to keep decking out the opponent, but come on, it's a bit we're a bit stretchy here, so yeah, the versatility also gets a 1 out of 3. So yeah, this is actually, for a VRAINS archetype, a very poorly managed archetype. No wonder Akira Zaizen never won a duel with these, so yeah. Next up we'll be taking a look at a much better archetype used by his beloved sister. Yeah, let's hope it isn't as garbage full as this one. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned for more videos and updates. Comment, like, and subscribe. And as usual, I'll upload the next vid whenever I can. See you all. Have a good day and peace.